Hello, guys. How are you? Uh, have Dave here. We're just going to do a short-ish stream to chat about this week in Apple news. I don't think there's been a huge amount of crazy stuff going on, but we're gonna have a chat through it. And for some reason, my computer is gonna keep making noises, so we will turn that off right now. Let me know if you're here. Let me know if you are here in the chat and watching. I think at the minute there is nobody, so that's exciting. James Apple is here. Stream is having technical difficulties. What's going on? Anything wrong? I didn't think there was anything going on. James, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Just having a quick look over the Apple website. So, got Apple Insider up here. Just have a quick look at if there's anything I've missed this week, but I don't think there's a huge amount. We've been hearing a little bit about USB-C coming on the iPhone 15s, which is exciting. But yeah, don't think there's anything crazy been going on. If you've got something you want to talk about, let's talk about it. Is everything working all right for you now, James? Can you hear me okay? Is that all working all right? My Little Pymo. Uh, I had so convinced myself that the M2 Pro and Max would have ray tracing based on the new APIs. Yeah, I don't think that's it's not a bad sort of theory to have had, but it seems like Apple actually had some problems with getting ray tracing hardware into those GPU cores. So I don't know. I don't think it's a weird thing to think that we would have had them, but it looks like they've been delayed a little bit. I think we might get them in the next gen. We've got those 3nm chips probably coming. I have got a bet going on now with Vadim over at Max Tech, which I think this beard is at stake. So yeah, basically facial hair is what we're talking about at the moment. Yeah, he thinks that it's going to be towards the end of the year when we get M3. I think it's going to be WWDC. And the thread that he said he thinks it's going to be late in the year on was literally from an Apple Silicon engineer who said they're basically going to be coming every year, pretty much annually. And last year it came in WWDC, and he went, "No, I don't think it will be though." The guys that make Apple Silicon probably know a little bit more than Vadim. Vadim and the guys over at Max Tech, they do really, really good testing of all the chips. They're terrible at predictions. That's my take on their stuff. We are going to be having a bit of a video, doing a bit of a dig, I think, at LTT. We've got a video coming up where I'm going to be sort of reviewing their review, sort of a reaction to their review of the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pros, because they got so much stuff just like factually wrong in that video. I feel like it needs to be called out. Even in their own forums, there were people having a go at it. My Little Pymo has Vadim copped up to how he was wrong on 3nm yet. Yeah, on Twitter, he basically said, yeah, I was right. I mean, it was always going to be 5nm, I think. This next one, this is a tricky one because we know that TSMC have started making 3nm chips now for Apple, and we know that the previous version is the previous version of the iPhone cores is based at the minute on the 4nm, which is 5nm plus plus. But I think they might scale it down between generations for this one. It's a bit of a weird one. I don't know if that's what's going to go on, but that's my thoughts. Is that they're actually going to just bring the process size down. Then Vadim's now saying that he thinks it'll be a 17 generation cores which haven't come out for the iPhone yet, which again makes no sense to me. I think iPhone is always going to get the core generations first because that's what we've had so far. It just happened that the first generation of Apple Silicon got those cores just after the iPhones, and I think that's kind of how it's going to stay. I think we're going to be getting sort of 6 months on, very much like we've got with the M2 generation. But let me know your thoughts in the comments and in the live chat if you disagree with me. But that's my thoughts on it anyway. 3nm is coming to A17, then come to M3. No, because A17 is going to be after M3. M3 is going to be out this June, July, with a 16 based cores, but I think they're going to be made on the 3nm chip. That's my thoughts, at least. Yes. And this is exactly the problem, my Pymo, saying that they would be skipping the A16, which they're not going to do. I don't feel like there's any reason that they would do that. Marcin, welcome, my friend. We can have a chat about Project 91 because I know you've been asking me some questions about that as well. We'll cover that on the call too. But do bear in mind, we're probably only going to do about half an hour today. I am seriously tired. It's been a very long week. I've got 2 kids that have been off school with me today, not very well, so I haven't got a lot of work done. So I'm going to be out over the weekend as well, doing calls out and about. But yeah, so we're probably going to limit this to about half an hour, so about 10:30 here in the UK. That's when we'll be wrapping this one up. James has asked a little bit about the earnings call. I think Apple was about 5% down on the earnings compared to what was kind of expected. And I think we all knew that they were going to miss it slightly on this one. This is the first time they've not actually massively increased earnings based on what Wall Street was expecting. And we already knew because Apple put out their own statement ahead of time and said, we're going to be we're going to be behind the pace because all of the factories are locked down and they aren't producing what we need. There were a lot of issues with things like component supply and that sort of thing, which everyone said in the past, oh yeah, Apple's always going to be constrained. Actually, they just wait until those components are available before they start making stuff. So yeah, that's where we are. Let's see what we've got here. So Marcin is asking, yes, about Project 91. Let me grab it for you now. Unfortunately, this is still how Project 91 is looking right now. So it is basically an empty Macintosh Classic 2. This is what we have. If I take the front plate off of here, it's going to sound really good. But basically what we've got inside is the Sabrent wall mount for the Mac Mini. That's all going well. The problem that I've been having is with displays. So I was hoping to use an iPad display for this thing, which I have up here. Which I don't know, it is still attached. Let me grab it all down. So, this is the iPad display that we pulled out of an iPad 3rd Gen. This is the LCD controller board. This is all the other gubbins that goes with it. Unfortunately, when we power this one up, all we're getting at the moment is basically a white display with sort of, looks like vignetted edging. So it looks like either the backlight's not working properly or we're just getting the backlight. There's a whole bunch of issues. So what I've actually picked up is this this display, which is actually designed more for Raspberry Pis. This is something that I can use temporarily. This is going to go inside to begin with because that will be much smaller than the actual display I want to put in there. But that's something I can play around with a little bit down the line. But that's kind of where it's going to sit for now. This does work. We've had this up and running. This little LCD running off of my MacBook Air as a secondary display, so that's great. That all works, and that's great. In terms of Marcin's just asking if I'll be able to still do the original power switch out of it, which is one of the things that I really do want to do, so I can still turn it on at the back. I think so, but it does mean actually like ruining the original boards that came out of the Macintosh, and obviously that's high voltage stuff. I think like electrically, not a problem. I think we can do it. But I kind of didn't want to sort of ruin the stuff that was in there. But that is literally attached to the same board, I believe, as the CRT. So it's a bit more of a big job than I expected when I first started the project. Still want to do it, but yeah, it's a little bit tricky. So the case itself has had the 3D printed frame put into it. So that's glued in now. So I'm kind of at the point where I know that this is not going to be a classic Macintosh I can put back together. It was untested and kind of sold as not working in the first place, so I don't think it's a massive issue. But there we go. That's what we have. So yeah, there is going to be updates coming. It just we need to get to me having a little bit more spare time. Might be able to get some stuff done over the weekend. We'll see. Let's have a look what else we've got down here. So James Apple is saying Apple is drinking that Hennessy White and touchscreen Max, ray tracing, A series chip, 3nm chip. Yeah, I'm still not 100% sold on the idea of this touchscreen Macs. I have got a touchscreen display here, which I've plugged into the Macs. It's bloody awful in terms of an interface for the Mac when you try and go touchscreen at the minute, because they haven't adjusted the software to match. There's a very good way of using kind of Mac style software on a touchscreen. It's called an iPad, and it works great. We don't need to have Mac OS working on touchscreens. It's not really a bonus, I don't think. So that's all good. Let me just grab some water. I'm a little bit dehydrated today. It's not a good thing. Let's see what else we have here. So, have you watched Everyone Else Burns yet? No, I haven't. I don't know what that is. My Little Pie Mode. Just let me know what it's all about, because if it's cool, I will watch it. James Apple is saying, do you think we'll get a 15-inch MacBook Air come in March or later in the year? I think I've said this a few times in the past. I don't think we're going to get that 15-inch MacBook Air until we get to the M3 generation, which I think is going to be at WWDC. That just makes all the sense in the world. That's what I've said basically since, I think, like November time this year. I've said right from November of 2020 that I think Apple Silicon is going to get annual updates on things, and there seems very little point in putting out an M2 version of MacBook Air with a larger display and then updating the smaller one. You're going to update them both at the same time. It makes far more sense to do the two together, and I think that's going to be in June. That's still my thoughts. I don't think anyone's really contradicted that recently. I think there was a while ago people said maybe around the first half of the year, which that's when WWDC is. Let's see what else we have. My Little Pie Mode hot take. I think iPhone Pro / iPad Pro can run Mac apps. Would be useful. Doesn't need to run full Mac OS. Could run a stripped down VM or desktop only on extended displays. So here's my thoughts. I think all of Apple's software is kind of built on the same core technologies at this point. Certainly between iPad and the Mac, because obviously you can do Catalyst programs from the iPad to run on the Mac. There's no real reason that a lot of that stuff wouldn't be able to go back the other way. Yes, there's some frameworks that are missing from the iPad, but it's all Apple's frameworks, so there's no reason they couldn't port them over. So I think what we might end up seeing, rather than seeing macOS running on an iPad or iPadOS running on a Mac, is just common software that you can run on both, and that just becomes the norm. I think that would make a lot more sense. It gives you a different interface layer when you're talking about like your sort of ribbons across the top of the screens, that sort of thing. That makes the most sense to me. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Would love to take an iPad Pro traveling and hook it up to a docking station or monitor when I want to run Mac apps. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't run it on the main display. It's just that you'd need a mouse and keyboard or trackpad. That would make the most sense. WA Blinko is saying, you've probably been asked this many times, but what is your setup given macOS doesn't allow you to stream? Thanks. Looking to go live on my channel. macOS does allow you to stream. This is all on macOS. So you're watching me through my iPhone at the minute. I'm using continuity camera on my MacBook Air, and it's going through OBS. That's it. That's pretty simple. I open OBS, I tell it to start streaming, and then YouTube sees that. Yeah, I've got a full setup here, but it's very, very simple. Got a USB microphone that plugs into a dock that's over there, which is plugged into my MacBook. Done. Super easy. Martin says desolder it. Yeah, I mean, I can desolder it, but then there's still all the other stuff you'd have to take off because it's all part of the same frame for that power switch on the Macintosh. Bit awkward, but I might even just try and find a matching switch that I can sort of solder into the power cable. That might be the way to do it. My Little Pymo says iPhone Ultra with 8 gigs of RAM could totally run a macOS VM when docked. Well, even it should outperform the A12Z Mac Mini with just an A16. Yes, but the A12Z Mac Mini that was the developer transition kit also ran absolutely terribly by all accounts. I don't think 6 gigs of memory would be an issue for running macOS. I don't think that would be the thing that held it back. With the A12Z, it was more of a case of the individual cores weren't particularly quick. But, you know, It's all a lot more optimized at this point, much better. Martin says, I wonder, it seems more likely that the Mac Studio will be skipped to M3. I don't know. This is one of those things that doesn't quite make sense to me. There's been talk of the Mac Studio being skipped so that they can go to the Mac Pro, but then maybe they alternate years or something. The Mac Pro would have more expandability in terms of external cards that you can kind of add more I/O, that sort of thing. But I don't think it's going to be like a massive difference. The one thing that I do think is that the Mac Pro might get multiple options in terms of like multiple processors. So you might be able to have dual or quad M whatever number ultras. That would make the most sense to me, to be able to like slot in and out those processor cards, maybe on like a PCIe card, and then your main board, your sort of logic board, becomes like a backbone that kind of just does I/O and power delivery to the different cards. That would be my thoughts. Let me know your own thoughts, because obviously like cooling is not a huge issue for these things, because although MaxTech can manage to get them up to sort of 110 degrees when he tries to transcode 8K video in Canon RAW on a MacBook Air with no fan, who's doing that all day long? Nobody really, I don't think. You can put some bigger fans or even water cool a Mac Pro if you really need to, but I don't feel like it's actually that much of a practical problem for people. Let's see what else we've got here. Macs don't need touchscreens. Correct. My Little Pymo says, do you think that Apple will ever have a Mac Pro with expandable RAM again, or perhaps tiered memory, or is that dead? I don't think they will, and the main reason for that is that the big advantage of Apple Silicon is the fact that you can basically have your memory part of the package and fully accessible by the GPU and the CPU at the same time, so you're not having to swap between them, you're not having to copy memory from one side to another, and that is what kind of gives it a lot of the speed that it gets. So I wouldn't have thought we'll see expandable anything within the Apple Silicon world, certainly not GPUs, certainly not CPUs, but maybe things like I/O, things like storage cards, that sort of stuff, maybe. Don't see it with anything else. Marcin Kowalczyk says, touchscreens on Macs, in my mind, completely over-engineered solution to a problem no one has. So now the one thing that there's two ways that I think touchscreens would work for the Mac, and the biggest issue that I have is because I'm used to like watching videos on my iPad a lot of the time. If I've got a video on my MacBook and an ad comes on, I will sometimes reach over to hit the skip ad button. First world problems, absolutely, but that's quite annoying. Or if I want to use the trackpad, then because I use multiple displays as well, I'm then trying to locate, because my main display is quite big compared to the MacBook as well, trying to see where that mouse cursor is, and then you have to scroll it down, whereas you would just poke with the others. So I think that's my sort of thoughts. The big way that I think would be really good for the Macs to have touch support would actually be Apple Pencil, and I've talked about it at length in the past. An iMac style device that looks a little bit more like maybe Microsoft's Surface Studio, which is kind of their iMac style thing, and they have a Mac Mini size base, and then it's got a couple of arms, and you can pull it all the way down to being basically drawing board kind of angle, like maybe 25-30 degrees, and then being able to use an Apple Pencil on the display for any sort of graphics works would be really, really nice. But I don't think it's a particularly like big problem that many people are finding. You can use an iPad for that. Let's see what else we got. James Apple is saying, will we get macOS Mammoth this year? Because I can't get macOS Miami. I don't think Mammoth's going to be the name that they go with. I think they basically trademarked a couple so that they've got options. I don't think Mammoth is probably a word they'll use unless they were going to do some crazy changes. It just doesn't feel like a name that would fit. But who knows? It seems like we're going back to animals there. I know it's a place in California, but it just feels like we're going back to the animals that we had before. So, Michael Moy, late start, busy doing regulatory stuff, did a video on cleaning MacBooks, including the screen fingerprints, get on it as it is without a touchscreen. This is one thing that Linus Tech Tips actually brought up that was quite valid, is that whenever you open the MacBooks now, because of exactly where that camera is, you're always basically putting a fingerprint over it, which is quite annoying, I've got to say. Black Greninja asks, or says, I'm just used to saying Black Greninja asks, Ico Dave, mate, hope I asked enough questions to keep you busy. Yeah, I've seen your stuff. Can we discuss your dream iPhone Ultra? Yeah, it looks like the Ultra is actually going to be its own phone and not just the new name for the Max, which is interesting. I would say it's probably going to be a little thicker. It's going to have a bit longer battery life. It's going to have these power saving modes. Hey, iBunny. I think it's going to have probably, it might be the first one that gets the telescope camera, the sort of periscope camera rather, that's sort of folded around. I've got to say, I've seen the pictures that Marques Brownlee took using that new Samsung, the S23, I think it is. And the pictures of the moon look pretty epic, I've got to say. But, you know, I think that's one of the things that they're likely to put into the Ultra. I don't know what else they're going to do. I did see some renders that someone's done where it's got the same kind of shape as the Ultra Watch, so it's got the rounded sides and then it sort of puckers up towards the display at the front. A little bit of a strange thing. I think it'll probably start at like 256 or 512 in terms of storage. One thing we've heard is that it's going to have potentially like more I/O, i.e. like we're going to have the Thunderbolt ports on the Pro phones, but this is going to have another port, which just seems very strange. The only thing that I can think is that they maybe would put some sort of external storage option onto this, so maybe an SD card reader or something along those lines for mini SD cards. So maybe you can expand your storage in order to offload files quicker for if you're making movies and stuff with it. That's a potential, I guess, but it just doesn't seem very Apple. Maybe the SIM card slot could move over to that, but why would you do that when you're then trying to also get rid of all the buttons and probably get rid of the ports in order to make it more sealed and less kind of prone to moisture, dust, etc. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not excited about an Ultra version. I'm not excited about spending more money because I know that I want it. But there we go. James Apple, mammoth is a California landmark, not the animal. Yes, but it's also an animal, and that would confuse people. Everyone would be putting pictures of woolly elephants on stuff. Ultra will be swapping for the Plus, I think. Well, it might be, but it's going to be higher priced, so it doesn't really make too much sense. Michael Moy, I keep microfiber cloths around my desk for the external monitors and some of the living room for cleaning the MacBook Pro screen, glasses, etc. I didn't spring for the Apple polishing cloth. No, I've got one of these. I think this is actually a Cult cloth. I think this is from Airfon over on the Cultcast. But it's really good. That's the one that I keep handy for all my tech stuff. I'm not sure if that is a Cult cloth anymore, but it might just be a microfiber. Thunderbolt 4 for the iPhone Ultra, maybe. But again, I don't think there's enough people that care. I just really don't think there's enough people that actually care about the I/O for them to do that. It seems like everyone cares because of the 1% that actually watches this kind of video, and certainly the 0.1 of 1% that makes videos like this. Those are the people that care. But there we go. Yeah. Thunderbolt 4 plus an Apple-made hub. But for what? Like, nobody's hubbing their phones. It's not a thing, I don't think. I'd prefer it on iPads. I think there's an argument to put faster I/O wired onto an iPad, like an iPad Pro, than there is onto the iPhones, 100%. But then you get more likely to shoot footage on an iPhone and more likely to edit it on an iPad, I guess. And that tends to be the biggest files that you'd be using as video files. So maybe you need it on both. maybe you can just do a USB-C to USB-C direct transfer between the two. That might be quite interesting. You know, I'm still not 100% convinced that it's a problem that anyone actually needs solving at this point. I feel like, just like folding phones, it's a solution in search of a problem rather than anything else. iBonnie says, I have the HomePod Mini. It's great. Yes, I've got a HomePod Mini too. I bought it the first day they came out. Really good. Marcin Kowalczyk, AirDrop is fast enough for general use. I think docks for people that use much more mass storage. Yeah, and for mass storage, you're not probably using an iPhone. And if you are, then mass storage would be in the cloud. It's the most sensible way of using storage for a portable device, because you don't sort of sit down at a desk with a portable. I mean, I'm very desk bound with my MacBook, and that's just because I'm used to having a desktop. So yeah, I've got every port filled on my MacBook Air. But I would love to just live that free life of just using the MacBook Air with just the MacBook Air and not with all the screens. But my workflow is just used to it now. Brandon Owl says, I would love to see Thunderbolt speeds on iPhone. Yes, it is a problem. ProRes videos take too long to transfer on AirDrop. Even over a cable, it's not going to be that much faster, I don't think. But, you know, it's fine. But I also don't think there's many people shooting ProRes videos and transferring them to other stuff. A lot of the people that are shooting videos on their iPhone are probably just doing it and editing it and posting it from there. Or, you know, it all gets sent up to iCloud anyway if you've got iCloud storage. So, download it from there. Chris Marino Hardin says, I just can't imagine ever doing my developer workflow on an iPad with the limitations. Apple hasn't even ported Xcode. But do you think there's actually a hardware limitation, or is it just a case of they haven't ported it yet? And does it even need to be ported? Because obviously everything that is written for the iPads is written in Xcode. So presumably the software itself would be capable of running on an iPad, especially if it's running an M1 or an M2 inside. That shouldn't be an issue at all. It's just a case of Apple actually putting the frameworks onto the iPad, I would say. But I'm also not a developer, and you guys are. I don't know. I don't see why it should be a huge issue. James Apple, have you test drive the sound of the HomePod at the Apple Store? No, I've not actually been into the city centre yet. That is on my list for early next week. But yes, fingers crossed. Do want to go and have a listen. Michael Moy, I don't generally shoot on my iPhone, but it's something I might do in future, like shooting an hour of tennis in 4K. I can copy it over USB 2, but it takes a while. Yes, but you could also just AirDrop it, and it will be far, far faster than USB 2. So there's no real reason that you should do that. Also, it would be much faster to AirDrop it. It would also be much faster to wait for it to upload to iCloud and then download it on your PC or Mac. Chris says you can do it on the MacBook Air. Yes, you can. Obviously, that's all good. iBonnie iPad 9th generation is good, but I miss my MacBook. Yeah, my kids have both got 9th gen iPads. They're great. No reason for that. Michael Moore, is that a work beverage? No, this is water. It is late on a Friday night here. It is about 10:30. My wife's out working, so I've got the kids here. I'm being very well behaved. Marcin Kowalczyk says, I wonder if there will be a spring event this year, since M2 Max and Pro came already, maybe an M2 iMac. I think if we're going to get the spring event, it's probably more likely to be focused on this AR/VR headset. I think that's most likely to be the one that's going to be coming up. Yeah, so that's my thought, is that they'll probably focus it on AR and VR, and maybe I would say that the event would probably focus on that stuff for iPhone and iPad first, and then they'll be like, and one more thing, we've got this, but it won't be out until after the summer. My thoughts is the headset will probably not launch until the fall. However, I think we'll see it early this year, just so that people know what's coming, because it's not going to cannibalize any of their own sales, but it will stop people from buying like a MetaQuest or whatever the other stuff on the market is. I forget nowadays, but I think it might make people hold off on those, and that would really hurt those other companies, but it won't hurt Apple. So I think we'll see a preview of it and the DTKs coming out and stuff like that. I don't think VR will be ready to launch, but I think it will be. I think that's what it's going to be. I think that's what we're going to see, and then WWDC will see all the frameworks for it going out to developers at large. I think there'll be select developers that will see it in the first place, and then I think in the fall that's when we get it. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Chris Marino says, I think it's software limitation, but as long as Apple is going to block JIT and Terminal, yeah, but if Apple was putting Xcode on there, then they wouldn't be, so it shouldn't be a problem. Bonnie says, I'll make an update on my HomePod Mini soon. Yeah, keep them up to date. Everything should stay up to date as much as possible. BZZERC says M2 or M3 iMac this year, and will there be a 27-inch iMac? Almost certainly, I don't expect a 27-inch iMac at all. I think 24 is right. I think that's the right size for it. If you look back in time, the original G3 iMacs only came in one color, one size, many colors, one size, which is what we have now. And a lot of the design inspirations come from that. So I think one size is fine for that. And then you've got your 27-inch Studio display, which you compare with a Mac Mini or with a Mac Studio, depending on how much power you need. I do think there should be an M2 iMac, but that would also probably be at the March event if they're going to do it. If not, maybe they are waiting until M3, but it doesn't really make sense that they would. Marcin, will VR be ready to show off in spring? I think it will be ready to show off, but I don't think it'll be ready to sell. Black Ninja says, I'm disappointed that none of the other creators have featured you, mate. You're underrated. They would definitely benefit from... well, we've interacted with a lot of the other creators. Obviously, we did the IKversary the first year. We had John Prosser, we had Luke Miani, we had a whole bunch of other people come on the show. Brian Tong, the guys from Constant Geekery. We had a few others. Tech Car Moon, quite a lot. So it was a really, really cool show to do. I would like to do it again soon, but just haven't got the time right now to arrange something like that. It's quite a lot of work. Can we dub the Apple event Spring Fully Loaded? Well, no, because we don't know what it is. Seems a bit of a weird choice. Brandon says, for those of us who shoot ProRes, as I do, 9 minutes of footage is 58 gigs or so. That takes about 2 minutes to transfer over Thunderbolt. AirDrop is about 14 minutes. AirDrop is barely faster than USB 2. Put it right next to your Mac. I'm telling you, it can be way, way quicker than that, because USB 2 is 480 megabits, I think. I do like 8 to 10 gig files quite often, and it's like a minute. It's really quick. The closer you are, though, with AirDrop, the faster it will go. Master Gavalchek, I feel like the 27-inch iMac is retired for good. Me too. Don't think there's any real need for it, and obviously you can throw on whatever other display you want. Although I do think we might get some bigger displays. I think 27-inch is coming back for the next version of the Studio display with the mini LED. Apparently that's not gone into production yet, so don't expect that in the spring. iBonnie says I'm going to stay up for a save up for a MacBook Air. That makes sense. James Apple, no. iMac Pro, no. iMac Pro was a one and done. It was never intended to be a product line. It was a gap filler, because we were sitting between the 2013 Mac Pro and the 2019, I think it was, Mac Pro. That's all it was. That's all it was. Seems weird to me that the high-end Mac Mini outperforms any iMac. Well, that's fine, because the iMac is basically designed to be a fully consumer device. What's basically filled the spot of the old iMac Pro and the 27-inch high-end versions is the Mac Studio. So that makes all the sense in the world to me. There's no reason that the iMac should be a high-end device, because anything with i in the name is supposed to be consumer. That's how Apple started off. iBooks, iMacs, that was the consumer line. PowerBook, Power Back. That was the Pro line. Very simple. Marcin says, IK for 12k, let's go. Yeah, I'd love to be getting up to the 12ks. That would be delightful. Let's get up there. Uncle Buh is here. By the way, hi, missed all the chats. How you doing, mate? Hi, Bonnie, what was your first Apple product? It was an iPhone 4, and here it is. Oop, still got it. Beautiful little thing. It's a little bit dusty, but yeah, these things are awesome. That's what got me into Apple. Then I got my 11-inch MacBook Air 2011, and then started collecting like the older Macs and stuff. There's a G4 Cube over here, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, very big on the older Macs. I think I just find them really nice to look at. Let's see what we got. I feel like there's space in the lineup for a 30-inch iMac with an M2 Max. Yeah, but that's the Mac Studio. Like, you just get the 32-inch bigger display. I think they're going to bring the price down on the Pro Display XDR, or whatever they call it next. So you'll be able to have a 32-inch display or the 27-inch display that you can pair up with a Studio. And then you can just switch out your computer bit without having to replace the display, which is actually a lot more economical. James Apple says, how many subs do we need to be featured on the Genius Bar podcast? 100k. We've been mentioned on Genius Bar several times because obviously John used to watch the channel quite a bit. So I know he's got a lot of stuff going on at the minute, and he's running like a proper business now. He's got Burn writing for the Front Page Tech website and stuff, and writing a script. So he's a busy guy. Brandon says, do I put it right next to me, M1 Max MacBook Pro, and still get slow speeds? Any suggestions? It should be Wi-Fi Direct, so there shouldn't be any real reasons for that. But yeah, try different sides of it. Which laptop is it that you? It's the MacBook Pro. Just make sure it's maybe behind it would be best, because I think that's where the windows are for the antennas. That might make sense. Michael Moy, I think the M2 Max are better scaling on 4K monitors, especially with the HDMI port on high resolution now. The scaling thing that people keep talking about, that is not actually an issue. What you need to do is basically make sure that your display is at its one of its native resolutions. So either a 4K display you can run at its native 4K or at 1080p, and it will scale absolutely fine and not put extra pressure on the GPUs. It's if you go in between the native levels that it's then having to like interpolate pixels between physical pixels, and that's what puts the extra pressure on the GPUs. It's nothing to do with what the display resolution is. It's whether you run your displays at their own native resolutions. That's the issue. Because if you send a signal to a 4K display and you're trying to run it at like 3K, then it's having to kind of work out what the pixels in between should be, rather than running them at the pixels that they're supposed to be. So yeah, this is a weird kind of misconception that people seem to have, I think, about like scaling and stuff. If you were trying to run 1080p or 1440p on a 4K display, that would be really, really hard for it. But everything else, it's absolutely fine. So, yeah. There's a lot of people talking about the Cube at the minute, so let's just bring it in, feature it a little bit. In you come. It's my friend. This is my favourite computer ever. And yeah, we'll do that bit, because everyone loves seeing how the handle works and how easy it is to service everything. And that's it, lock back in. Right, let's see what else we got. Marcin's saying I invested into Studio Display with Nano Layer, and glad I did. So much easier on the eyes. No need to cover my windows like I had to with the 2012 iMac. Yeah, non-glossy displays definitely don't reflect as much light. That's all good. The Mini was usually lower than the i, though. iPod versus iPod Mini. Yes, but that doesn't. The Mini was just all about size, to be fair. My first Apple product was an iBook G3. Was it the clamshell one or was it the all white one? Interested to know. I've got a clamshell sitting up there in blue. Does the IP4 still power on? It does if it's charged up. Yes, the iPhone 4 is still working. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if we got a power cable, we could probably power it on now. Let's see if we can get some juice in there. Ooh. Stuff all over my desk. Yep, display's already powered on. Very nice. Cool. Let's see what we got. You had an Apple IIe before as well. Very nice. Someone saying that the Mac Studio will be replaced with the Mac Pro. What are your thoughts on that? It doesn't really make much sense to me that they've designed this whole thing from scratch. Now, when they had the iMac Pro, yes, I know they gave it some internal changes in terms of, the cooling and stuff. But it wasn't like a redesigned product. They just made it black, or space grey at least. I think they'll keep it around, but not 100% sure either way. Will we get the Pro Display XDR2? Will it come with the Apple Silicon Mac Pro? That is my guess, yes. That it would come out at the same time. A lot of love for the Cube coming through. What if Apple brought the iBook name back? I actually did a video on this where I said that they should, now they've moved away from the Intel stuff, have gone back to Power Mac. I think that would have been awesome. I know that was based on the Power PC architecture that they had in the past, but I think take away the Pro name, put back Power, I think that would have been a really cool name. Really good way of doing it. And the same with the iBooks. MacBook Air could have easily become the iBook. I run between them. The Mac Studio has no problem with it. You run in between. Okay, yeah. I mean, you can always brute force your resolution if you've got a whole bunch of that stuff. If you've got enough power to brute force it, it's going to have no problems, but you will also find that it is using more of your GPU time to kind of do in between resolutions. But yes, it can certainly do it. Megan, how are you? Nice to see you. Michael Moy, there aren't enough Apple products with handles. No, I know, absolutely. The chunky handle on that for pulling stuff in and out is great. I kind of miss handles on iMacs. That was quite good. The Beats Pill 2, the Beats Pill Plus had a handle and it was the coolest product. Yeah, Beats Pill, was that before Apple had them though? I think it was. My first Apple product was the iPhone 4S, says Bonnie. Very cool. I never had the 4S. I had the 4 and then I went to the 5 and then I went to the 6 and then I went to the 7 Plus. I went to the 6 Plus, then the 7 Plus, and then the 10S Max, tennis match, and then the 12 Pro Max, and now the 14 Pro. That's my iPhone legacy. Let's see what we got. Did they abandon the G4 Cube design for the Mac Pro? They never had one, I don't think. That was a guesstimate for us that we were hoping it would be cubic. But I think that was basically a taller version of the Studio. It seems like the new Mac Pro is going to be basically the same look as the old one. Yeah. Let's see what else we've got here. Second, something they spent so long developing after 2 years makes no sense in return on investment. Where is my friend there? Oh, about the Studio being replaced. I mean, I don't know how much time you have to spend developing, making a taller Mac Mini, and putting some more cooling in it, but it doesn't seem like they would get rid of it, but there we go. We don't know. Michael Moy says, I love the Studio, having used it for a while. Don't think that Apple needs the product, though. They could just force customers into a Pro if they need more than a Mini. I don't think... I feel like that middle ground is good, and Apple's middle ground has in the past been the iMac, but at this point, because they've sacked off having higher end minis, because you can't put enough cooling probably in a mini to do a max. I feel like it's a useful thing, but maybe it only needs to have the max. Maybe it just doesn't need to have the ultra in it in future. Maybe the Studio is a max chip and then the Pro is the ultra. But I still think the Pro is likely to get 2 or maybe 4 ultras, which would be great. Megan says, just got the Apple Studio display for my M2 Mini, blown away by how beautiful it is. Yeah, I mean, Apple's displays are really, really good. They are just pretty beautiful panels. But my argument with the Studio display is that it is basically the iMac display from the 27-inch 5Ks. Little bit quicker, but yeah, that's it. Team Kinetics is here. Stop the presses. Johnny, I've designed the King's Coronation crest. Really? I mean, I have got my Johnny Ive red noses here as well. Just so we all know. But does that just come up? Is that what it is? Okay. So here we go. Thank you for the Stop the Press. Yeah, we have the King's Coronation crest designed by Sir Johnny Ive. He is getting around at the minute. He's been doing nothing since he left Apple, and now that's what he's up to. So that's impressive. And there he is with His Majesty the King. Very exciting. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some more stuff, so maybe we'll make a video about that this weekend, just so that we can talk about His Maj. Yeah, all good. Thanks, Team Kinetics. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for letting me know. iBonnie, I would be happy to have an iBook G3 or iBook G4. Yeah, I love the look of these things, and I think my one still works. It didn't power up last time I tried it, which is annoying, but prior to that, I might have to pull it apart and see what we can do. Don Bullock, Tech iHound, sorry. My first Apple products that I bought was the Apple IIc. I switched them out for a Macintosh SE when they came out. Both excellent computers for their time. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people that have just been with Apple forever, and it's really good. Now, look, I said I was going to finish this after half an hour, but, you know, we've gone for 45 now. I am going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes, so if you've got any last questions, do chuck them into the chat. Happy to answer, because I like just hanging out with you guys and having a chat. But yes, very interesting about Johnny. He's getting busy, isn't he? He's just done the red nose, and now he's done this. Very exciting. We've also got Super Bowl on Sunday night, which Apple Music is sponsoring the halftime or interval show. What do they call it in America? Any Americans here that can inform me on what they call it? Is it the intermission? Is it the... I don't know. The interval, like at a theatre. So all of the footballers can go and change their costumes for the second act. Is that how it works? Very exciting. Yeah, let's have a quick look. HomePod 2 obviously is out, and people seem to be quite pleased. It sounds really good by all accounts. Everyone's happy with that, I think. Yeah, cool. I think we'll wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Looks like the conversation has calmed down a little bit. But yeah, we're going to end it there. And if you have any questions you want me to answer in a future show, all you need to do, use #iCaveAnswers like James does all the way through this, and use it in the comment section instead of the chat, and I'll be able to answer them in a future video for you, alongside loads of stuff from Black Greninja. Thanks ever so much, guys, and we will see you in the next one.